Earlier, we heard a press conference from NOAA, that's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, where they were specifically discussing that Atlantic hurricane season. So, a press conference from a federal governing body that relates directly to us here in Hampton Roads. So, we're going to play a portion of that press conference, and we're going to have Evan Stewart come in and maybe react a little bit to what we heard and also give us a brief forecast on what's to come for the weekend, what's to come for the rest of today. So, let's listen in on that NOAA press conference right now.
Hurricanes today, but they're working all year long. Winter storms, tornadoes, floods, wildfire events. All the models that we run at NCEP, the National Center for Environmental Prediction. This includes the National Hurricane Center. I'd love to thank the National Hurricane Center for their excellent work, particularly last year where they set a new record in forecast accuracy for intensification. Hurricane Melissa was accurately predicted to rapidly intensify before the storm even developed. We also have NOAA research. This is where the numerical weather prediction is developed. These are the folks that develop the models. We have the Hurricane Analysis and Forecast System, or HAFS, which is going to be our flagship model this year for cyclone intensity. They also work on cutting-edge development of instruments. This includes the drones and the gliders. We're now getting into the world of running artificial intelligence-based forecast models. This work's being developed there too, as well as the work at Hurricane Research Division, which advances our understanding of rapid intensification of these storms. We have the National Ocean Service, which develops the coastal and ocean models, obviously essential to understanding sea surface temperature and air-sea interaction. They also manage the ocean observing systems, ensure the waterways and the ports are open after a storm. We have NESDIS, the branch that handles NOAA satellites. We have geostationary satellites, which are the GOES, which you're probably familiar with the visible satellite imagery of these hurricanes, and also the infrared. But we also have low Earth orbiting satellites with JPSS. This is where the microwave sounders come in. This is the data that drives a lot of the numerical weather prediction models. We also have the Marine Aviation and Operations as well as the NOAA Corps, the folks which you see here today. They're in charge of the ships, the planes, all the data collection, not just for hurricanes, but also fisheries management, among other things. Behind me, we have the two P3s, Kermit and Miss Piggy, celebrating their 50th anniversary of flying into storms. These are 8 to 10 hour flights. They have the tail Doppler radar, which you just heard about. They deploy dropsondes. We also have a high altitude jet, and we'll bring in another 2 online here soon. These are the planes that fly over the storms and deploy instruments through the storms. All this data goes into the computer models to better generate our forecasts. I'm incredibly proud of the amazing work that these public servants do for our country. Okay, on to the numbers. For the Atlantic hurricane season, NOAA is predicting a below normal season for 2026, with roughly a 55% chance of being below normal, a 35% chance of near normal, and a 10% chance of above normal. This equates to 8 to 14 named storms with winds at or above 39 miles an hour. Of these, 3 to 6 hurricanes with winds at or above 74 miles an hour, and 1 to 3 major hurricanes, that's your category 3 to 5, with winds at or above 111 miles an hour. In the central and eastern Pacific, we're expecting a 70% chance of above normal activity. The eastern Pacific, we're expecting 15 to 22 named storms, 9 to 14 hurricanes, 5 to 9 major hurricanes. And in the central Pacific, we're expecting 5 to 13 tropical cyclones. These percentages are based on multiple factors that represent a probabilistic distribution, which includes a lot of information. But even though we're expecting a below average season in the Atlantic, it's very important to understand that it only takes one. We have had Category 5s make landfall in the past during below average seasons. What's driving this forecast is largely an El Nino event. There's a 98% chance of El Nino conditions occurring later this season, and an 80% chance that this El Nino will be moderate to strong. In the Atlantic, the El Nino increases the vertical wind shear, which disrupts the outflow at higher levels. It makes it harder for development of the eastern waves coming off of Africa to strengthen into storms. However, in the central and eastern Pacific, the El Nino reduces the vertical wind shear, essentially the opposite of the Atlantic, which is why we're expecting above average season in addition to the warmer sea surface temperatures there. We have several new observing systems that we're bringing online this year. As you heard about earlier, we have uncrewed aircraft systems. We tested these over the last couple of years with Black Swift drones used operationally this year for the first time in the HAFS model. The tests that we ran in the experiments last year showed that the inclusion of this data from these drones increased the intensity forecast accuracy by roughly 10%. We also have uncrewed surface vehicles and submersible gliders. In addition to the observing systems, we're doing a lot of work on the modeling front. We're introducing an AI-based version of the GFS, as well as an AI global ensemble forecast system, the hybrid GEFS. We also have a new AI-based hurricane forecast model that we've developed in partnership with Google DeepMind, which we used experimentally in last year's hurricane season. There are also advances in the physics-based models. The Unified Forecast System has been testing an experimental high-resolution seasonal forecast system. We also have the Office of Water Prediction, which will be rolling out high-resolution flood inundation mapping, which couples to the hydrological forecast. This provides the emergency managers visualization of predicted inundation at the street and neighborhood level. The Hurricane Center has some new communication products as well. They're implementing a new version of the forecast cone, which was tested last year. This cone includes tropical storm and hurricane watches and warnings in inland areas. We're also issuing new products and services in support of storm surge forecasting for the Hawaiian Islands. Lastly, the Hurricane Center is testing an experimental version of even a newer cone. Since 2007, the cone has been based on absolute track error, but this new experimental cone accounts for forward motion and directional or lateral uncertainty. This is a much better way to independently visualize uncertainty in both direction and timing. For the official forecast guidance, go to hurricanes.gov. June 1st is almost here. Be ready, have a plan, listen to your state and local emergency managers. Preparation is essential. You can learn more at ready.gov. For more on storm preparedness, I'll now welcome National Weather Service Director Ken Graham.
Thank you, Dr. Jacobs. Some great information there for everybody, and highlighting some big improvements going forward. So it's a very exciting time. So just thank you, and thank you, Admiral Carey, as well. So just saluting this incredible team behind us. And I just wanted to definitely echo what Dr. Jacobs said, just saluting the employees of NOAA, just an amazing group. I don't know, every day I seem to be more humbled to be at the helm of the Weather Service, and just looking at the whole crew here in blue and others supporting this mission. We can't do it without you, so just a big thank you. Great to be here at AOC. Just an amazing place, a lot of operations, but I definitely want to thank somebody that's here on stage. This is our lead seasonal hurricane forecaster, Matt Rosencrans. These numbers, right, they're just not just generated by random. There's a lot of science that goes in to these numbers every single year. So I want to thank Matt and your team for everything that you've done, and also congratulate Matt, because this will be his last seasonal outlook as he's going to our lab to train the next generation of Outlook scientists, which is absolutely amazing. So I'm glad to have him in the test bed training the next generation. So he's absolutely amazing, and he's here with his dad. His dad, put your hand up there. So congratulate both of them here for such a great job and all these years of service. So seriously, being able to train the next generation is a huge thing. But on behalf of NOAA, the Weather Service, and quite frankly, the American people, thanks for your service. Just absolutely amazing amount of work over the years. So it's great to be here, and I really salute the aircraft operations folks. Wow. I got to fly in to Hurricane Helene, and one of these, I'm not sure which one behind me, I didn't look where they were parked, but it was an amazing experience, but just an incredible mission. Heroes, honestly. They go towards the storm so we can get people away from the storm. It's just quite simple as that. So what you all do is just amazing. We can't do it without you. So we've never been more prepared for hurricane season as we are now. Dr. Jacobs highlighted some of the new models, the new technology, the service improvements. So it's absolutely amazing. Looking at the new cone for the National Hurricane Center, just saluting everyone there, always progressing, always going forward, just being able to have the inland effects. Just the cone doesn't stop. The impacts don't stop at the coast. The impacts go way inland, and we've seen that over and over and over again, including most of the fatalities end up being inland as well. So as a result, looking at a cone that highlights all those inland threats is a big step forward for the public to understand what these threats are. And Dr. Jacobs also talked about the experimental cone. I mean, you almost got to retrain yourself a little bit, because we always talked about the last 5 years of error, and 67% of the time the center stays in the cone, 1/3 out. Anyway, we've got to retrain ourselves. It's okay. So having this new cone, I think it's a big step forward to actually represent about 90% of the possibilities of where the center could be. I think is a big leap forward. So kudos to that new representation of it. I do want to announce as well, with the flood inundation mapping that Dr. Jacobs mentioned, by the end of September, we'll have 100% of the country covered. This was a long effort.
A long effort indeed. We come back into the studio here because now we get to witness some of our efforts here locally coming up to prepare for that hurricane season, and a little more insight into what's to come for us here in Hampton Roads. Evan Stewart is here. We will be with him right after a brief commercial break. All right, we're back here in our live Impact studio. We are joined by meteorologist Evan Stewart now. Evan, you're here after we got to listen to at least the beginning portion of the National Ocean Atmospheric Association.
Oceanic and Atmosphere, yeah.
Speaking about, right, this is, I should have left this whole thing.
Yeah, just say NOAA. Yeah.
I always go NOAA, and then I'm like, is that confusing? Because NOAA is also a person's name.
Right, yeah. And
so I like to lay it out.
He had a little bit to do with the water
right.
and stuff.
And see, I'm laying the whole title out so that I can make it more clear for everyone. And then everyone's definitely more confused after I just did whatever it is I just did. Right. But you are here to clear up any confusion that we may have. Let's start with Atlantic hurricane season. A little bit about just your observations on what's to come.
Yeah, well, obviously the National Weather Service, National Hurricane Center, NOAA, came out with their forecast, which is for a lower activity year, which is kind of right in line with what Colorado State has said, and kind of what we're seeing. The idea is that we're transitioning from a La Nina pattern to an El Nino pattern. That's the warm waters in the Pacific Ocean, and when you have that warming waters in the Pacific, you tend to see more activity in the Pacific Ocean, and that disrupts the air currents and everything in the Atlantic Ocean. And typically, that means a less active year in the Atlantic, and that's sort of what all the indicators are for right now. Now, we say that it's not going to maybe be average for an average season, but that doesn't mean that one's not going to hit.
Right.
All it takes is one.
Right.
And you look at some past seasons that were inactive. When you look at the 90s, and you had Hurricane Andrew, which was a devastating, Category 5 hurricane in Florida. But other than that, it was a fairly inactive and a late start to the hurricane season. So, again, just because we say it's going to be less active, it sort of lowers the odds, but it doesn't, make it zero that something won't hit.
Right.
We've had some busy years here where we didn't have hardly any, storms that interacted with the United States. So it's just overall activity in the Atlantic, Caribbean, and Gulf. It's not a forecast for how is it going to impact coastal areas.
Even the decreases numerically, it's not an overly significant number, right? It's not like it's cut in half. It's minus a couple potential tornadoes or hurricanes.
Yeah, just a little bit below average. I don't have the official numbers here in front of me. I think it was 8 to 14 it might be what they're going, and I think an average year is 13, something like that. So it is a little bit below the official or the average from the 90s until 2020 or so. So again, little less active, but not like, oh, it's going to be quiet and nothing's going to happen.
And as we've learned generally in life and when it comes to the weather, you never get anything for free. So with this El Nino creating a situation where we might have a less active season, is there a unintended consequence somewhere down the line that could impact us?
Well, I think one of the things that we are seeing is the drought situation here across much of the southeast. And yeah, we've got some rain coming up over the next few days, but we're still in a moderate to severe to even now, the new drought monitor came out to an extreme drought. So, hopefully, we will get some rain, but typically in an El Nino pattern, things are a little bit drier across the southeast.
Right.